This is my research project for Art 101 of Art History, Prehistoric to Gothic with Professor Lisa Allen. This is the legacy of Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus and Roman stone carving and artistry. And then to provide some basic historical context for the both Caligula and just Roman history in general. Um, the time period of Julius Caesar and Caesar Augustus was, of course, turbulent. And so, with the death of Julius Caesar, his son, Caesar Augustus, would take place as the first Roman emperor and establish the Roman Empire, in which Caligula would eventually become the third emperor following the death of both Tiberius and of course Augustus. And so Augustus himself is actually known for several examples of iconic stone carved statues, such as the Augustus of Prima Porta, which I'm sure you've seen, and although he is not the central topic of this presentation. And so following his death, following Tiberius's death, Caligula would become emperor of the third emperor of the Roman Empire. And so Caligula himself would be depicted in several iconic statues, both in lost wax and stone carved technique, which is what I want to emphasize here: the mutual use of both stone carved and lost wax in art, and exemplified by the portrait statue of Caligula and just Caligula as an individual in general. And so, even as though lost wax would generally be lost wax would generally overtake stone carving when it comes to like these smaller, more detailed depictions of important people and like spiritual and religious leaders, and especially in the Roman Empire. Stone carving as a method of art still existed during these times and existed mutually alongside as like a sec as like a it existed mutually alongside with lost wax technique, which was used on these statues, which I'll be showing examples of both. Of course, the portrait statue of Caligula, which is the main point of this presentation, but also lost wax technique statues of Caligula, which is what to showcase the coexistence of the two techniques in the Roman Empire, and specifically again with the case of Caligula and the portrayals of him. And so there's also the case of his assassination and the destruction of his statues. And so Caligula was very unpopular both in the Senate and with the Praetorian Guard. And so with his assassination by the Praetorian Guard, they would attempt to erase his memory from history by destroying these statues and portraits and depictions of him. Um, and this was especially the case with lost wax technique statues, which were made out of marble and wax. Or sorry, not marble and wax. They were made out of bronze and wax traditionally, and so they were easy to shatter and destroy, as opposed to these hardy stone-carved marble statues, which are not hollow and are completely made out of this hard marble material. And so most of these statues would end up surviving, or would have pieces of them removed, either being reused or thrown into the river Tiber. Irregardless, the statue itself would still survive, as opposed to the lost wax statues, which would be destroyed. And so, on the topic of stone carving has a long history, of course, dating back hundreds of years, with earlier examples being the curved minaret found in South Africa. But in regards to Roman history, when it comes to stone carving, an example I'd like to bring up is the patrician Taurian bust, which is a statue depicting Cato the Elder. The patrician is, of course, someone in Roman society who is at like a higher social position, like a higher social caste than others. Taurians being an affluent Roman family at the time. And so this bust of the senator Cato the Elder is, of course, in stone carving, and is one of the earlier examples of Roman stone carving. And so it compares to that of the portrait statue of Caligula in the fact that they of course both stone carved, but one of them is depicted in a separate, less realistic style known as Vernism. And of course both the patrician Taurian bust and the portrait statue of Caligula are realistic. It's just in the Vernism style, certain details are exaggerated, sort of like a caricature, In the Patrician bust, the wrinkles on the face especially are heavily exaggerated to showcase, um, just like heavily exaggerate these details, like defining the character, as opposed to the style that the portrait statue of Caligula is created in, which is more refined, like details to show an idealized version of Caligula as opposed to what he might have actually have looked like. And so generally, again, when it comes to comparing stone carved to lost wax, stone carved is hardier. It is used for these larger than life statues, like buildings, architecture, things like columns, like the art that is indented in the front of buildings, like such as the of course like the Pantheon. With Lost Wax is unable to do things like architecture, like you aren't able to do Lost Wax um, in that sort of way because of its hollow nature and how it's created, as opposed to stone carving, which is weight bearing but also less detailed, of course, with Lost Wax usually being used for more detailed things. And so we also have the actual a better picture of the actual statue here. As you can see, the face is more refined and it's smooth. It has like a chiseled jaw. It depicts him like in a pose of intelligence, in which he is believed to have his hand pointing forward as he leans against some sort of a small like outlet, like a pillar or something of the like. He looks forward and steps forward. He isn't looking sideways or down or up. He isn't looking down at you to pity you. He isn't looking upward or away from you to as if he's ignoring his people. He's looking directly forward, both towards the future and to um, the future of his civilization. So it gives off an aura of intelligence and strength, and I think that's just great. Now, when it comes to lost wax technique and its comparison to stone carving, and of course in the case of Caligula, you can see here the as I had mentioned before, this is an example of a lost wax bronze portrait of Caligula, with this being a marble stone carving. And so it shows how both of these are used in tandem around the same time. With again, as you can see, this is more detailed. Like you can see wrinkles on the face here, the wrinkles of the cheek that connects to the nose, as well as the actual the eye bags, and then the ways that the eyebrows connect to the eyes, as well as more detailed and intricate pieces in the hair. So like small details like this are generally what lost wax is used for. It's more like personal and like detailed, as opposed to that of the stone carving. As you can see here, this is more generally detailed and more like similar to how it would actually be, while this is more idealized. And so in terms of back on the topic of lost wax, of course, lost wax is a newer technique compared to that of stone carving. I believe in Terra Rose 6,500 years ago, in modern-day Bulgaria. And essentially it revolves around the idea that you have the actual mold, and then you pour wax into the mold, and then the mold, or sorry, so essentially you create a mold, and then clay is introduced to create a duplicate of this mold, of which wax is poured onto, and then the hot metal, such as the bronze, is introduced with pipes, allowing the hot wax to escape through the bottom to create a shallow, or sorry, a hollow, but detailed imagery like this. And then, like I had explained with the stone carving, both of these techniques had existed at the same time and is shown serve different roles. That's about all I really have for my presentation. I think with the idea that in mind that there you have, of course, the lost wax Roman statues, and then the stone carved statues, such as, of course, the statue of Caligula that we have here, and the Prehistoric busts. There's, of course, good examples of the Roman stone carving, and then the two depictions of the same person, both of Caligula, again, the portrait statue of Caligula himself, and then the imperial portrait of the Emperor Caligula, both in stone carving and in lost wax show the contrast, or sorry, the use of depiction to depict the same person, both in similar time periods, and how they were used in tandem to create art in the Roman Empire. And then, of course, here is the bibliography with all of my sources. The assassination of Julius Caesar, which was my picture, and all the stuff along that. And that's it. See ya.